Welcome to the ProfitMaxx software tutorials. This tutorial series will help you better understand the setup of your ProfitMaxx software and let your service department realize the benefits of proper technician management much quicker. Let's get started.
Chapter 4, Timesheet Use and Rollout Process. During this portion of the tutorial, we're going to go through in detail how to fill out the timesheet. We're also going to cover each one of the different action codes that's on the timesheet, go through a full explanation of that, and then how to actually roll it out to your technicians so it's not only painless but it's effective. Like the setup portion, the timesheet and the accompanying rollout process is critical in terms of the proper use of the ProfitMaxx software. So again, we have 3 ways you can learn just as a form of review. We have the online help screens, and I can't emphasize those enough. I mean, literally any time you're in the software, you're looking at any portion that you don't quite understand how to fill in properly, or even how to interpret. Simply hit the F1 key, and the help screen will pop up and give you all the detail you need. Again, we have a physical manual that'll go through it step by step, and of course you're listening to the audio tutorial right now. As we begin to look at the timesheet and how to roll it out properly to your technicians, I'm going to assume something, and what I'm assuming is you've already been through the setup of the ProfitMaxx software. If for some reason you have not been through that tutorial yet, I strongly recommend you go through in detail the tutorial on the setup of the software, because it's going to refer to some of the different blocks that we have in this particular portion of the presentation. So with that said, what you see at this left-hand side is a picture of the opening screen for ProfitMaxx. You've seen that several times by now. We should be getting familiar with that. The third icon from the left is the folder where all of the reports are stored and also where all the forms are taken care of. I'm pointing at the envelope on Forms and Documents right now. The first form underneath that is called your daily timesheet. I would suggest you maybe even pause at this point. Go ahead into your software, print out a daily timesheet just so you can see what it looks like, so that you can be looking at something as we go through the software itself. It's not critical, but if you get a chance, I would go ahead and do that. I think it would be a wise thing to do. You'll notice there's 2 layouts of the timesheet. There's one called the daily timesheet. That's the one with all the action codes on it. That will be really good for your techs for the most part. Perhaps later on, when they're really familiar with the action codes themselves, you might want to print out the second one, which is called the Daily Timesheet Extra Space. This is the same timesheet, but it does not have the action codes on it, but it does provide some extra space for your technicians to put in information. Now, before we actually go through and show you how to fill out the timesheet, we need to review in some detail the different action codes that are associated with ProfitMaxx. It won't be very long before you'll begin to hear the language change in your office. Rather than people saying, hey, this was a service with diagnostic, they're going to say, hey, Joe, what about that SO2, or was this an SO3? They're going to begin to talk in those kinds of languages. Let's look at the different action codes. SO1 is called Service with Diagnostic. That's basically a standard service call. The technician goes out to the job, he goes through the diagnostic, he performs the repair. An SO2 is defined as Service Follow-up Only, no diagnostic. That's when the tech is coming back to a job he's previously worked on. He's not going to charge a diagnostic fee a second time. He will charge him for the repair while he's there. So that's called an SO2. SO3 is what we call diagnostic only. That's when the technician goes out there. Perhaps he was going on a regular service call. After he showed the customer what the cost of the repair was, for whatever reason they decided not to do it. In that case, all he's going to do is collect the diagnostic fee. So he'd want to change his action code over to an SO3, diagnostic only. And then we have another one called SO4, extended warranty. And just to give you a little more detail on that, that's when you're entering the diagnostic and repair revenue that will eventually be collected by the manufacturer or the insurance company standing behind the extended warranty. This should be entered into the data fields just like it was revenue that was actually collected on the job. And that's what extended warranty is, SO4. SO5 is pretty easy to understand. That's called a tune-up. When they're out there literally just doing a tune-up on the equipment, that's when you use the action code SO5. Now let's look at the M action codes. MO1 is residential maintenance, non-renewable. In other words, they went out there to do the residential maintenance. It was not time to renew the maintenance agreement. MO2 is residential maintenance renewable. That is, when the tech was out there, he had an opportunity to renew the maintenance agreement for another year. MO3 is a commercial maintenance. MO4 is a commercial filter change. And there's one more action code on this sheet called the TO1, and this is transfer to another department. That's when one of your service technicians is asked to work in a different department of the company for a period of time. That could be new construction, it could be any portion of your company other than maintenance. And you'll remember when they're transferred out, ProfitMaxx automatically changes their daily goal. So if he was supposed to work bring in $1,000 for the day, if that was his goal, and he's transferred out for half a day, ProfitMaxx will automatically adjust the technician's goal for that day down to $500. So again, it's fair to the technician, and it only shows the time in the reporting that he actually worked in the service department. The next action codes are what we call the CB action codes. That's callbacks. CBO1 is a callback from the same initial technician. CBO2 is a callback, but he's going back on it because it was created by another technician. CBO3 is a callback that's been created by another department, perhaps installation. When they put in the unit, there was a problem with it, and one of the technicians in the service department was asked to go take care of that situation. And a CBO4 is a callback that's created by product warranty. Now let's talk about the A action codes. AO1 we've talked about some already in the earlier tutorials. AO1 is manager applied time. That's any time the technician is allowed to do anything except work in the service department by his service manager. AO2 is used when they're in a company meeting. If you're going to have your weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, the time that they're in there, the time would be recorded as an AO2, company meeting. AO3 is formal training. Formal training needs a little bit of explanation here. That can be training that's conducted by an outside agency, which may or may not be paid by the company, either at your site or off-site. AO3 is also used for trainees who are riding along with an experienced technician for field training. In either instance, a trainee should have just 3 entries in their timesheet, AO3 from start until lunch. Lunch itself will be AO9, and then when they get back to training, it'll be AO3 all over again. The AO4 action code is early off work. That's when you don't have enough work to finish out the day for the technician. Maybe it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You're saying, hey Joe, we don't have enough work for the rest of the day. You need to head home. He puts on his timesheet AO4. AO5 is used for vacations. And this is a good time to remind ourselves that anytime a technician is going to be paid for, he needs to fill out a timesheet, whether he's physically there or not. So if he's going to be on vacation, before he leaves, he needs to fill out a timesheet and put on their AO5, vacation. That way he gets paid for it. Same situation if he's on a holiday that's going to be paid for. He uses the action code AO6. If the company allows sick or personal time that they pay for, that would be an AO7. If the technician is simply told, hey, don't come to work tomorrow, and he's not going to be paid for it, again, he needs to turn in a timesheet. That will be AO8. And make sure each of your technicians takes lunch every single day. And when they do that, they use the code AO9. Now we're going to look at the on-call action codes. You'll notice these are just like the action codes we've already had, except all of these pertain to when the technician is on call or after hours. The first action code is OC01. That's for service with diagnostic. That's just a normal service call with a diagnostic fee, but again, it's done after hours. OC02 is what you're familiar with also. It's service with follow-up, no diagnostic. OC03 is diagnostic only. OC04 is extended warranty, again done after hours. OC05 is service technician callback. OC06 is another technician callback, again done after hours. OC07 is transfer callback. OC08 is product warranty. And OC09 is manager applied time. You'll remember when we went through the setup portion of the tutorial, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the equipment age and how when we filled those in and set up, they were physically going to print on the timesheet itself. Well, you'll notice on the bottom of the timesheet, in this particular case, we have furnace, condenser, boiler, and oil furnace. Again, you will fill in what those 4 items are. You're also going to fill in the age of each one of those, what you consider old, medium, and new. You're going to pick those numbers. You'll notice there's also an MC, and that stands for Maintenance Customer. If you look at the top left-hand corner of the screen, underneath where the action code is going to go in a couple of minutes, there's an MC up there. That means they're a maintenance customer. If they are, we're going to circle that. If not, we know right away that that particular call is not a maintenance customer so far with our company. Now let's get into the actual filling out of the timesheet. The very first item up there says action code. And you'll notice we've got arrows pointing to the bottom of the timesheet. All the action codes I just went through with you are printed at the bottom of the timesheet for easy reference from the technician. So he fills in the action code. Then he circles whether the customer is a maintenance customer or not. If they don't have a maintenance agreement already, he leaves it alone. If they are a maintenance customer already, the office is going to have to tell him that. And when they do, he will circle MC, which lets the system know that he's a maintenance customer. You'll fill in the customer's name or job number. We'll fill in the location code, and we spent a lot of time talking about location codes during setup. Spend a lot of time on that, think through the process, and when it's done, make sure you print up a listing of those location codes for your technicians after they're really set in concrete for the most part. You might want to plasticize them so they can take them with them on the truck. The next block is your invoice or job number. You fill that in. The block below that is the original technician. That's only used if it's a callback and the technician who is on the callback is not the original technician. If he's not the original technician, he writes in the name of the tech who was the original technician, again, so ProfitMaxx can pick that up. Now let's move on to the center section having to do with the types of work and maintenance agreements. The first thing you'll notice is under service types we have commercial and residential. And you'll notice as we go throughout the filling out of the timesheet, a lot of the information we need is simply circling something rather than writing it down. For obvious reasons, a lot of techs don't like to write. They're not real good at writing. So we have as many things as possible that we can literally circle on here to get the information. Now it's interesting to note that right now he's going to circle either whether it's a residential customer or a commercial customer. Now that can become important to you because as you begin to look at the reporting in ProfitMaxx, you will have the option of running those reports on just residential work, just commercial work, or it can be a combination of the two. That's the beautiful part about ProfitMaxx. You have total flexibility. You can look at a report over a period of time, be it a day, a week, a month, a year. You can look at just a technician, a group of technicians, just commercial work, just residential work. So circling the service type right here is going to let us take that particular call and know whether it's residential or commercial. When it comes to the maintenance agreement section of it, if the technician sold a maintenance agreement while he was there, how many units did he sell, and what was the total cost? And again, remember a unit is a motor bearing unit. So if he sold a maintenance agreement for heating and air conditioning, there's 2 units on there. So he would put 2 in the terms of the number of units and then the total cost of the maintenance agreement below it. If he was out there and he renewed an existing maintenance agreement, again, how many units are there and what was the renewal cost? If the technician is out there simply doing a maintenance agreement, he's actually physically doing it, he's going to write in how many units he worked on when he was there. So he may be checking the air conditioner, but the customer has 2 air conditioners on that maintenance call, so he'd put 2 out there. And when he does, the system will go back to setup. It'll pull out the dollars that we put in for the sale of that, for the actual cost of the maintenance agreement, and we'll give him credit for those dollars. Under the sales lead, the technician will circle, did you get a sales lead or did you not? A qualified sales lead. If he did, he circles yes. If he didn't, he circles no. In terms of the age of the equipment, that's listed down at the bottom of the timesheet once again. The technician simply circles whether it's old, medium, or new. Most of the time they can look at the labels on the equipment itself and determine the equipment age. Now it's time for the technician to physically enter the time from his watch onto the timesheet. Now obviously if he's going to put the time on his timesheet, he has to take the timesheet with him into the house or into the business so he can fill out things as he goes along. The first box he fills in is dispatch time. When the dispatcher calls a technician, says, hey, go to this particular location, the technician literally looks at his watch. In this case, he writes down 10:21. When he physically arrives at the job, he again looks at his watch, writes down exactly what time it is. Now it's 10:38. When he's through with the diagnostic, he looks at his watch. Now it's 10:56. He writes down 10:56. When he completes the job, again, he looks at his watch. He's ready to pull out, get his next call. He writes the time off his watch. It's going to be 11:42. And if it's an on-call, that is, he's out there after hours, and your company policy is for the technician to get paid all the way back to his original home, then he would write down the time when he actually got back to his house. And you notice there's one more box on there. It's called total hours. ProfitMaxx does not need this box. You do not need to put any information in there. But some companies like to see that information on the timesheet for their own reasoning. We don't need it for ProfitMaxx. Now it's time to fill out the invoice information. If your company is on time and material and you charge a trip charge, then write out the amount of that you're charging the customer for the trip charge. If you're on flat rate pricing and you have a diagnostic fee, write down what you're charging the customer for the diagnostic fee. Then you write right next to that the repair cost. How much are you charging the customer to do the repair that is being done while the technician is at their house or at their business. Below that, the technician is going to circle either cash, credit, or direct bill. Cash or credit basically means I collected money on the job, be it a credit card, a physical check, or cash itself. If the technician did not collect while he was on the job, then he's going to circle direct bill, which basically means he didn't collect the money and the company is going to have to invoice the customer. And then the last one over here is called completion code, and this is a very important one. You remember we went through setup and we talked about how much it was costing us when we didn't finish the job the first time. So this is critical information to the company. Now, if they're out there and the technician finished it the first time he was on the job, under completion code, he'll just put a Y or he'll put yes, Y-E-S. If he didn't finish it on time, he needs to explain why. He's got several options below we can put in there. If he puts an NL, that means needs labor assistance. He just needed another physical body to complete the job. If he puts NP, that means he needed parts. That means he couldn't complete the job because he didn't have the part. Now, if you find a technician who's consistently saying, hey, I can't finish the job because of lack of parts, that's telling you as a manager, hey, he's not either properly inventoried on his truck, or perhaps his truck is just so sloppy he can't find the part. But either way, there's a problem. If he puts down NT, that means he needed technical assistance. But again, if I find a technician who consistently can't finish a job because of lack of technical expertise, then he needs to obviously get some additional training. And the last option is a no-show customer. If he goes to the job, the customer's not there, then he couldn't complete the job. He puts down NS, which means the customer was not there. The last portion of the timesheet is what we're going to view next. First of all, it says mileage start, mileage end. Nowhere in ProfitMaxx is that needed. However, let me kind of give you an idea why you do that. In my little town of Owensboro, Kentucky, the school system has a metal box on every single school bus. And in that box is theoretically a video camera. But the reality is there's only 2 video cameras in the whole school system. But the students don't know which bus has a camera on it and which one doesn't. So what happens? They behave themselves. By simply asking for the start mileage and the end mileage, that implies to the technician that you're checking their mileage every day. Now, you may not be doing that, but they think you are, and guess what? They're less likely to take it home, misuse it, use it for things they shouldn't be using it for. Now, the next box on there is very important. That one has a little statement in it that says, were you involved in a work-related accident today? And informed your manager immediately. Before they can turn in their timesheet, they have to check either yes or no. They have to have the manager's initials on there, and the employee needs to sign and date it. That can save you literally thousands and thousands of dollars. What would happen today if one of your techs came in, say on Tuesday, and said, I was hurt on the job last Friday, I forgot to report it, and he wants to claim workman's comp? Well, you don't have a lot of choice. You don't have anything to stand on. But if he turned in a timesheet on Friday and he checked off, did not have a lost time accident today, signed off on it, and then he tries to claim it on Monday, Tuesday, or sometime later on, you have a document that stated, hey, he was not hurt on the job. Well, that can save you a lot of money in the long run. So make sure one of those two boxes is always checked and there's a signature and a date on that timesheet. Let me make just a couple of comments on things to watch for on your timesheets, especially as you begin to roll out the timesheet to your technicians. Watch for several things, one of which is watch for rounding off of times. If you happen to notice that every time they put on the timesheet is always 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, in other words, they're putting 5:05 or 10:10 or 10:15, start watching and seeing what they're really doing, asking some questions, because they should have some 10:13, some 9:28s. There should be some different times on there other than just rounded numbers every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. Same thing applies when you look at your diagnostic times. It's not uncommon, especially at the beginning, for the technician to simply write down 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It's always the same thing. Again, they're not looking at their watch and they're not recording the proper times. Travel times are the same way. You will notice sometimes at the beginning they always have 15 minutes or they always have 20 minutes between each call. Well, you know that's not realistic. So those are some of the things you need to be watching as you go along, especially in the initial stages. Be sure everything is filled out and return the timesheet to the technician if for any reason something is not filled out correctly. Now let's talk about how to roll the timesheet out with your technicians. Ideally, this should happen during your weekly, and I emphasize weekly, service meetings. If you're not holding weekly service meetings with your technicians, you should be doing that. You need to make that a part of your normal schedule. So in order to begin to roll out the timesheet and do some role playing, what I'd suggest you do first of all is print up a stack of timesheets. Just have some loose ones there for the meeting. Then select 4 people within the meeting. If you don't have 4 technicians, and you take one of those positions yourself. And we want one person to be the customer. We want one person to be the technician. We want one person to be the service manager. And we want one person to be the dispatcher. So take those 4 positions, cut them up in 4 separate pieces of paper, throw them in a bowl, and have each of the 4 people draw a position. After you've gone through one role play, throw them back in the bowl, let everybody pick a different position to be, and they'll have a lot of fun with this. Then also cut up the action codes, and within your manual, your step-by-step manual, there's a sheet in there that has all the different action codes on it. Cut those up, throw them in a bowl at the same time, and let them draw out of that. So now we're ready to actually have our service meeting. Call a meeting. The first thing you want to do is go through the timesheet, explain that to the technicians, explain the changes that are going to be taking place in the company, explain the fact that you're going to this new ProfitMaxx software, which is designed to show the strengths of every technician, and also to show some of our weaknesses, not to beat up on the techs, but to help everybody do a better job at what they're doing right now. Because for the first time in history, you're going to be able to help the technicians know that you know who's the best one out there, who's the most profitable, who's the most efficient, who's doing the best job, and guess what? You're going to be telling the techs you're going to be rewarded based on your productivity, your actual measured productivity for the first time in history. They're actually going to like that. The good technicians are going to say, hey, this is a great idea, and guess what's going to happen to those that are trying to hide something? Right, you're going to get some pushback. So now it's time to begin the process with your technicians in terms of your meeting. You want to introduce the timesheet. You want to go through the action codes. Make sure everybody in the room understands the action codes. I would suggest you have a printed version with the full description. Again, you can get those out of the help screens in the ProfitMaxx software. Hand them out. Let them take notes on a piece of paper. Provide a few sample scenarios for them to use when they're completing the timesheets. Hand out a set of blank timesheets to everybody in the room, each employee. And then separate the employees into groups of 4. Again, if you've only got 3 or 4 technicians, you be one of them, so everybody has one of those 4 roles. And then have each employee draw a role out of the assignment bowl. Again, one time they'll be tech, next time they may be the service manager. And unless you're a very unusual company, they're going to have a lot of fun doing this. They really will. And it'll help them understand the process, and it'll help them go as a group, and it's not quite as embarrassing or hard when they don't do something properly because everybody's learning at the same time. So make it fun while you roll out the timesheet. So after everybody's got their positions, it's time for the employee who is the customer to draw one of the actions out of the action bowl, and then he basically calls the company and you start the role play. You go through the dispatcher, you go through the service manager, you go through the technician, and literally fill out the timesheet as you go along, filling in some fake times as you go along, so that everybody understands the process. Now, we're not going to cover it on this tutorial per se, but within your step-by-step manual, if you go to the section on timesheets and rollout, there's several examples in there. There's one that you can literally just read through with your technicians, showing them exactly how to fill out the timesheet, showing them the different roles of the different people within the exercises, and it's got all the action codes, all the different positions of the people. There's sheets in there for that. Just literally cut them up. They're ready to use and put them in your bowl. So I would suggest you read through that in some detail before you have the meeting, and then just make some copies of it so you can hand it out and go through the initial exercise with your technicians, with everybody just literally reading the exercise and seeing what kind of information they got out of the process. Now, we've been through the actual rollout with your technicians, but in addition to that, Grandy Associates has provided for you a full 60-day implementation plan for the entire ProfitMaxx software. From getting it set up to rolling out your text to when to begin to look at reporting. Everything is detailed on a goal-by-goal, week-by-week basis. So I want to strongly suggest you log into immediately. When you've been through the whole setup of the program, log into www.grandyassociates.com/implementation. It's on the screen before you, and it's also in your step-by-step implementation guide. Sign up for that, and then each week you're going to get an email from us. The first week there'll be a link in there that you can click on that will actually give you a physical copy if you'd like it for the full 60 days so you can see what's coming up each week. There's also a link in there where you can click on an outline for your service meeting each week if you'd like an outline to use in that. It's very, very helpful. So every week we're going to send you an email. We're going to say, hey, this is what you should do this week. The next week you're going to get another email from us, say, hey, you should have completed this. Now it's time to go on the next step, and this is what we want you to cover this week. So you won't actually get into the rollout of the timesheet to your technicians until you've gotten into the process for a couple of weeks. So it's going to roll out the entire program for you step by step and hopefully give you some accountability and also some very direct direction in the middle of that process. Hopefully this tutorial on the timesheet implementation, the rollout of the timesheet, going through the action codes, how to roll it out to your technicians. Hopefully this tutorial has given you a lot better idea of how to do those things. Again, keep in mind that you can replay this tutorial anytime you wish. You can go forward, go backwards, stop it, think about it, start it up again, put it in your computer anytime you want to go through that process. Also remember that you can also press the F1 key when viewing any screen on the ProfitMaxx software. Again, it can be implementation, it can be looking at a report, it can be entering data into the setup of the software program itself. Anytime you're looking at any information on the ProfitMaxx screen and you don't fully understand it, just hit the F1 key and immediately the help screen will come out and it'll give you detailed, common language, easy to understand information about what you're looking at. Now, this is the end of this tutorial. Select the next tutorial you wish to view.